All right, so patellar tendonitis can be something that's caused both by too much too soon, too fast, increasing the volume of your cardio, increases the stress on the tendons. But it can also be caused by particular tightness in certain parts of the body. And so we're going to go over real quick for the purposes of this video. You can pause it in between after you do each of the exercises or the MFR or the stretches, and then move forward through it when I provide you the sets, duration, and so on and so forth. So the first thing you're going to do is work some MFR. So we're going to take a tennis ball or lacrosse ball. I'm going to adjust the angle here so you can see it. You're going to lay face down on your yoga mat and hit 3 trigger points. We're going to go high hip, mid quad, low quad, and the low quad is just above, probably a few inches above the kneecap. That'll be the most tender because there's not a lot of tissue down there. So what it looks like on the floor, obviously the injured side is the one we're affecting. For the sake of this video, I'm just going to do show you a couple quick positions. Here, here, and then down low. Hold each position for about 45 seconds to a minute. Does it have to move back and forth? You don't have to move your leg back and forth. Once you find a trigger point, stay on there. Last MFR point is in the hips, particularly the piriformis tends to be real tight in people that are encountering some tendonitis in the kneecap. And so we want to get into the hip, particularly into the glute of the injured side, right low glute. If you want to have an expression on it, we usually do a figure 4 laying on the back. So this is what it looks like standing. We're going to do that for about a minute there. Looks like this. So that's for a minute as well. If you have the time, do that 2 times through in a cycle. If you don't have much time, 1 is great. And then let's work a little bit into the stretches. So the figure 4 stretch, we already kind of demonstrated while we were doing that. And loosening up the hip flexors and the quads is absolutely critical. So we'll start off standing, very familiar. Standing quadricep stretch, probably the easiest one of them all. Try to keep the hips and pelvis flat as you pull that foot into the hip. If it's real tight, it's obviously a sign that it's going to express a lot more on that kneecap. Then working on external rotation, you can do a standing figure 4 stretch. If you're somewhere where you cannot lay down and do a figure 4, this would be the standing version. All stretches should be held for about 45 seconds to a minute as well. It'll be 2 to 3 sets of each of these stretches. That's stretch number 2. If you can lay down on the floor, you can do that figure 4 laying down and drawing the knee to the chest. Another question that I get often with any physical therapy is, should I do the other side, the non-injured side? You can compare and contrast, but the most important thing is that you hit the injured side to try to bring symmetry. So the comparison and contrast, by doing one side to the other, you're trying to achieve that balance. So you don't necessarily need to do the non-injured side. If you want, just to try to strive to give yourself a compare and contrast, that's great. That's stretch number 2. Stretch number 3, we're gonna get into the hip flexors. That's a low lunge position with a quad release. So this one will be real tight, right? We're gonna come in forward, abs pulled in, pelvis held in neutral. We don't wanna just flail into the back. We wanna keep the abs pulled in. So we're getting a stretch through the high quad and the psoas. The psoas will start to pull a lot harder, and that obviously can attach and have an impact on the quads, all the major quads. There's actually 6 quads that can have an impact. If you can, once you've done that for duration, that's the next stretch. Next stretch after that, hand on the floor, reaching back. The reach back version on that quad release with the lunge will be the most intense thing you do. So ease into it. If you can't reach back and grab it, you can put a belt around your heel and pull that foot up. The last stretch is just a traditional S stretch to loosen up all the muscles of the hip. This would be a pigeon, sort of a pigeon, easier version of pigeon pose in yoga. If you can do that, make sure you ease into it and not go too intense. I like the S stretch better because it provides us an opportunity to ease into it, and it's more scalable. You can build up into it. Leg bent at 90 in the front, 90 in the back, and from here leaning forward. Again, more on the injured side. If you're short on time, just stay on the injured side, loosen up the hip, and that'll start to have a massive impact on that patellar tendon. As far as exercises go, to enhance that, we need to bring up the glutes. So a bent leg bridge would be the exercises that we do. We're gonna do 15 to 20 reps, just igniting the hips. And then we'll work a little bit into the VMO bringing some blood flow into the lowest part of the quad with just a variation of a sissy squat. So bent leg bridges, 15 to 20 reps, hips up and down. Once you've done all your MFR and your stretching, you ignite the hips, 2 to 3 sets, 15 to 20 reps here. And then we have to intentionally start to condition the tendon lowest the quad. Now, ankle squats is what I call the first variation of sissy squat, but the sissy squat is a version where we do intentionally let the knees go over the toes. So this is what it looks like as a progression. Step 1, we start here. We just first letting the knees go forward some, just to enhance the activity of that quad, the quad muscle, the intermedius, vastus intermedius. If you're feeling good and stronger, you start letting those heels come up. And then the full expression is obviously all the way down and back up of a sissy squat. Whatever version of that, make it scalable. If you're encountering pain and discomfort beyond a 3 or a 4, back off. Just get the little version of that squat. That's your routine right now. All the sets. In between, do it at least every day, if not 2 times a day while you're feeling like you're still in discomfort. Keep some ice on there, especially after runs.